Good evening, members. This is Mboa Akleo, Group 1 representative, and I would like to take you through how Firewall works on Kali Linux or Linux operating systems using an application called the Nmap. And I will also take you through the reasons why one may need a firewall installed on his or her device, or one may need firewalls on his or her system. So in a definition, a firewall is a network security device that monitors all screens, incoming and outgoing network traffic, and decides whether to allow or block specific traffic based on a defined set of security rules. And it can either be a hardware, software, or either both. That is a simple definition of a firewall. So, and a firewall acts as an intermediary system between the device and the internet. So, and this is how it works on Linux operating systems. So to work on the operating systems, there are default tools that can be used to configure. Here in hand we have the IP tables, which is the default tool provided in the Linux to establish a firewall. The IP table is used to set up, maintain and inspect the tables of the IPv4 and IPv6 packet filter rules in the Linux kernel. There are mainly three chains one has to follow to define a particular task in firewall, and there are three rules or chains: the input chain, the output chain, and the forward chain or rule. So the input chain, in the input chain, for any traffic coming from the internet or network towards your local machine, it has to go through the input chains, meaning that they have to go through all the rules that have been set up in the chain. Data coming or traffic coming from the internet cloud to my computer or someone's computer, which is my local machine or Android or iOS phone, it has to go through the input chain. It has to go through the thorough inspection and filtering by the firewall to my machine. That is all about the input rule or chain. Then the output rule, that for any traffic going from my local machine, it can be either a phone or a computer to the internet, it also needs to go through the output chain. In the input, traffic is coming from the internet to the local machine. In the output rule, traffic is going from my local machine to the internet. So my firewall installed on my device has to thoroughly inspect the traffic that is coming from my local machine to the internet. Then rule 3 is the forward chain or the forward rule, that any traffic which is coming from the external network and going to another network needs to go through this chain. And this normally occurs when two or more computers are connected and want to share or send data between them. I may have a computer and my friend has a computer. We want to share data together. So definitely here, his firewall has to detect or has to inspect and filter the data he is going to send to me. Me also, my firewall has to be a very thing. So data that is being shared between the two computers must be thoroughly inspected, or must go through the forward rule. And the above rules go hand in hand with the actions which are used to perform a traffic on the default tool, on the firewall default tool, which is the IP tables. And these three actions are the accept action, the drop action, and the reject action. In the accept action, this is where when traffic passes the rules in the specified chain. Here, the IP table accepts the traffic. When the traffic passes the rules in its specified chain, this means that the IP table will open up the gates and allow the data to go higher. In fact, it will be the firewall to open the gates of it to allow the data to go, since it has accepted the traffic that the traffic has passed through all the rules in its specified chain. Then the drop action. Here, the traffic is unable to pass the rules in its specified chain. When the traffic is unable to pass the rules in its specified chain, the IP table blocks the traffic, meaning that the firewall is closed. When you're trying to scan a certain IP address of a well-protected system, for those who have ever used Nmap trying to scan, they bring a bunch of information trying to show what you filtered, ports that have been filtered, devices connected, the versions of the operating systems, but this all goes ahead after verifying that the firewall is not protected. But when a firewall is well protected, you won't receive all that batch of information. So when the traffic is unable to pass the rules, the file will be closed, you won't receive any message. Then there is also the reject action. This is similar to the drop action, but for it sends a message to the sender of the traffic and it says the data has failed or the data transfer has completely failed. When you try to send a message, when you try to scan or try to send data to a certain destination and it completely fails, so this means that the firewall has rejected it. The firewall to reject the data you have sent, this implies that the data has harm, or it is not supposed to go through it, or it is not of the type it's supposed to let it go. So this is when the reject action comes in. So there are rules, the list of rules of the current IP tables, which are literally checked from the topmost to the bottom. And whenever a data packet passes any of the top rules, it is allowed to pass the firewall. So the list of the rules here are which we really interact with for people who use Nmap. They are the pseudo IP table rules. And you normally have an output when you're trying to scan a trying to run a ping scan. They give you a bunch of information where you find that there are 3 chains. You input what you have to scan, you forward the firewall or the Nmap, the application forwards, then it gives you the bunch of information. That's when it is outputted. So, but there are also column headers when you're trying to scan, and after scanning, the output of the column headers has got 4 main parts, which is the target, the prod, the source, and the destination. So for the target, it defines what action needs to be done on the packet. Should it be accepted, dropped, forwarded, among others. So this is the role of the firewall. If the data has been thoroughly inspected and filtered by the firewall and it has no harm, it will accept it. And if it has got harm, it will drop it or it will reject it. So there is also the prod column header. This is defining the protocol of the packet. Is it the TCP protocol or the IP protocol? So this clearly defines it. So there are also the source, which tells the source address of the packet. Where is the packet coming from? And this is all shown when it shows the IP address of the source of the packet. Then there are also the destination, which defines the destination address of the packet. Where is the packet going? It is going on this IP address. So this is what one has to learn when trying to interact with the firewall on an operating system, Linux. this is part of what I wanted to share. This is part of what I wanted to share with you, and I also want to share with you reasons as why one may need a firewall. One, the firewall blocks malware and application layer attacks. Malware is simply software intentionally designed to cause disruption to a computer or a server, client, or a computer network, leak private information, or gain authorized access to information systems. So the firewall blocks malware and application attacks. How does it blocks? When you try to inspect the data that is being transferred, and after inspecting it detects certain data which is not supposed to go through it, it blocks it, does not give it away to go through it. Then it detects and combats attacks. When it filters or it inspects the data and detects the data has got harm, or it will cause harm, or it is not supposed to go through it, it will look for a solution to it, and it will control it, it won't go through it. So members, thank you for listening to me. This is what I had to share with you about how firewall works on Nmap and some of the reason why we need firewalls. I stay in Boa Aclorores. Thank you very much.